All right, guys, welcome back to, I believe it's episode 5 of the Facts Over Feelings podcast. Obviously, I'm Trevor. This is Ryan.
Mhm.
I'd like to thank Max again for making our last episode 2 weeks ago. If you haven't watched that already, go check it out on YouTube. A great success. Today,
Yes, that was great.
however, no special guests, just Ryan and I, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, for depending on the viewer. We are going to talk about several topics. We are going to address the COVID-19 sports updates. Obviously, there's been some rescheduling
Mhm.
updates among several big sports leagues across professional sports leagues across the United States. I know the PGA Tour has made some changes to their dates and all that. The NBA has updated us. The MLB has updated us.
Mhm.
We're going to talk a little bit about the NFL draft. The NFL draft is a week from this upcoming Thursday.
Crazy.
And finally, we might do a little bit of an interesting debate that has been resurfaced recently. I've seen it on a lot of major sports talk television shows. Undisputed is very well known for this debate. It's the GOAT debate, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Ryan and I will give our
Oh
takes
my.
on that. I'm sure there are a lot of opinions people have on those. So those are the main topics on today's show. Probably a little bit of a shorter podcast, but I'll hand it off to you, Ryan, to get us going.
All right. So thank you for introducing us, and yeah, I just also wanted to thank Max for the last podcast. It went really well, and we were really happy with how that turned out.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, turning to all these sports leagues, they've updated us, at least some of them, on what they want to do. And I know it's kind of early, right? I know the NBA has stated that they want to be on the forefront of the sports leagues that return, but at the same time, they don't really know when they can return until we start rolling back the lockdowns in certain areas. And of course, that's up to the states and everything. But anyway, I think we can start with just talking about the PGA real quick. I mean, why not? So they came out, I believe it was this past week, and talked about how they want to
Mm-hmm.
hopefully get the PGA Tour back up and running, hopefully sometime in June, I believe it was.
June, yeah.
Right? I think it was mid-June.
Mid-June sounds about right. The big splash the PGA Tour made in the news was the rescheduling of all of their major
Hmm.
championships.
Yes.
I believe the Masters was rescheduled for the second week of November, if I'm
Hmm.
correct.
I think the PGA
U.S.
was
Open,
August,
yes.
right? And then what
It might have been
was
September, actually. I'll look it up
was
real
it
quick.
September? Okay.
I'm pretty sure the PGA and the U.S. Open were both rescheduled for September,
Oh, really? Okay.
and the Masters was rescheduled for November. It's going to be a very busy fall for the PGA Tour. They have the
Hmm.
U.S. Open, the PGA, the Ryder Cup is this summer, or I should say this fall as well as the Masters. And
Hmm.
then the Masters is going to be played again in the following April of 2021. So two Masters tournaments in 6 months. I'm sure
Yeah.
for the average golf viewer, that's great because that's probably the most watched tournament of the year, the most recognized tournament on the schedule. So
Hmm.
good for golf. I'm glad that they didn't cancel any of the majors except for the British Open Championship. But yeah, it's going to be a great fall of golf, and the NFL is going to be hopefully on schedule in the fall. We anticipate it will be.
We
So
anticipate it
very
will
happy to
be,
see that.
and we've also seen that a lot of people have come out and have expressed optimism regarding college football, and at least in the sense of they
Hmm.
think it should go on schedule, which is good. I think everyone's kind of planning on fans returning to the stadiums, hopefully by sometime in August, which would be a really nice goal. I mean, we'll see how that pans out, but hopefully by the time September rolls around, fans are allowed back, so we have that college football atmosphere back.
I will say this though, among the fan issue, there is still a slight worry among several people who do think there's the possibility that not playing in front of fans or playing in front of no fans
Mm.
is a possibility. Only because there's always the worry of putting that many people together in a given space. Obviously, there's a possibility without a vaccine that the virus could always have a rebound. There could always be a spike up in cases at random times, knowing how contagious it is. So I'm not 100% sure that there will be fans yet. Obviously, we all hope there's fans. I would love to go to a Cardinals football game in the fall. I'm sure you would love to go to a college football game or a pro football game of
Mm.
any sort in the fall. It's hard though because I'm not 100% sure they're
Well,
all
of
in
course.
on
Well, yeah,
fans yet.
of course. I mean, we're not 100% sure.
Um, that begs the question of how big of a loss would it be, or how big of a disadvantage is it for a home team to play in front of an empty stadium? How much do you think, Ryan, does the fan impact a game?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about college and particularly college football, Well, college football and college basketball, but regardless, I think in college football, I think it plays a massive role. I think especially in
I agree in college.
the bigger teams like Alabama, Ohio State, Auburn, Michigan,
Hmm.
like anyway, the big stadiums, Clemson, right? All these big
Hmm.
stadiums, LSU, the fans play a massive role in who in this in the momentum in the game and who can win the game. And I don't know. Obviously the safety of everyone comes first, so we're gonna see. But I hope, and I think everyone else hopes that by the time
Of course,
September
yeah.
comes around, and I think it's pretty, it's a possibility. It's a very good possibility, and it's optimistic that by the time college football rolls around, we have fans return to the stadiums. We'll see what happens, but I think that that is a good possibility. So hopefully, we don't
I'm
have
in
to have
agreement
no
with you
fans.
there. I'm in agreement with you there. I do think by the time fall rolls around, kids will go back to school, athletes will
Yeah.
be able to go back to their facilities and teams and get going.
Hmm.
Ryan Day actually did a little. Ryan Day, the head coach of Ohio State football, did
Mm.
an interesting interview on ESPN yesterday, and he said in order for them to really be ready to go week one, if the season were to start on time, they need about 6 weeks of preparation with their team. And I just thought that was interesting because 6 weeks means that everything has to be back to not back to normal, but
Well, I
teams
mean,
and
it
people
has to
have
be
to be able to go
safe
back to right.
for the
Yeah.
players at least to interact, right? So that would
So
mean,
by mid July, you probably have to have it safe for the players to go
which
back, which seems
is
feasible as of
doable.
right
I
now.
think that's
Right.
doable. And yeah, obviously it's to be determined, but I think definitely where we're at right now, I think that's very doable. Um,
Hmm.
so I think at the moment it's pretty likely that the both football seasons will start on time.
I really
But
hope so, and I'm sure everyone who loves football is
yeah, yeah,
praying that football starts on time. I really
I
hope
think it
football
should.
starts on time. There seems
Mhm.
to be a good chance that will happen, so that's great.
Yeah,
But obviously, safety will come first for that.
yeah, of course.
But that's really about it. I guess the only other big update from COVID-19 is the potential of moving
Mm.
everyone to Arizona, oddly enough,
Oh yes,
ironically. Moving
in regards to
everyone to
baseball.
Arizona to play some baseball. I think it's a
Hmm.
decent idea. Look, I would watch baseball since there's nothing else on, and people need sports. We're
Of
seeing
course
that
they
every
do.
day, how much sports is a part of our lives. So, what do you think about everyone playing baseball here for a period of time, Ryan?
I think in regards to that, I think that's a really good idea. I know that the MLB said that they're in contact with like federal authorities in regards to like making sure it's safe, right? And I know players want to play, and some people are like, well, maybe players, they don't really want to play. It's like, no, no, these players want to play their sports. Like the
Absolutely,
vast majority of
absolutely.
these players love it's their dream. They love playing these sports, and they want to get back as soon as they can. I think that it's very possible that we see kind of like a condensed spring training again in the middle to late May. And I think it's very possible that by the time the beginning of June rolls around, we have, or maybe even the end of May, depending on how quickly we can get uh, all these players tested and in a safe
Hmm.
area, uh, have them all play in Arizona for maybe a few weeks to a month. And then hopefully by the time sometime in mid to late June, maybe something like that. Hopefully, we could bring them back to their stadiums. Um, Obviously, with no fans for a period of time, but hopefully, I think that's kind of the track that they're trying to go on. And it comes up like it brings up an interesting question, which is, can the MLB finish their entire season? Can they get all 162 games in? Like, what do you think? You think that's doable?
Here's the problem. Wouldn't the MLB already be over a month into their season right now?
Yeah. So if they started
Their
their season
season
in
starts
mid
what,
to late
March
May,
1st virtually?
no, their season starts the very last week of March or the first week of April.
Really?
The
Okay, so
season.
then they would only but they've only played a few games then by now.
By now, yeah, they had played a few weeks, like 2, 3 weeks, 3 weeks.
Okay. The only problem with the MLB is they have
Yeah,
such a condensed schedule as is. They're playing
mm,
6 days a week with
yeah, at least
maybe one
5.
travel day,
Hmm.
at least 5 to 6 days a week. For me, I think the 162 game schedule is ridiculous as is.
Okay, sure. That's
But if they want to try and finish the season on time, I
yeah.
don't virtually see a possible way that they can complete a full 162 game regular season and a full postseason
Mm,
if they're trying to finish on time. If they're trying to finish by the end of October, which is when the World Series typically takes place, I don't see that happening because the
sure.
MLB already, as I just said, has a very condensed schedule, very few off days, very few travel days. their All-Star break is, I'm pretty sure, like 3 days long. It's like Monday is the home run derby, Tuesday is the All-Star game, and then Wednesday
It's
may
not
be an
long.
off
It's
travel
it's
day.
it's a few days. Yeah. It's
I
not
just
too
don't.
long.
It just doesn't seem feasible. I think if the MLB was smart, they would just shorten their regular season by a few games this season. I don't think the players would be
Okay.
too mad at that. If it was a 125 game season
Now,
instead of a 162 game season, I don't think that'd be that big of a deal.
sure,
Unless they want to play into November, December, but that again will affect the offseason for guys who are trying
it
to
will.
rest. And obviously, spring training starts up in February. It's a very interesting issue.
It
I'm
is.
all
Yeah.
for the MLB just permanently shortening their regular
See, that's what I was
season.
gonna say. That's really interesting. So, what if they shorten the season this season because of other? Obviously there's other issues causing them to do that. But what if that leads them into just shortening the season permanently? Would that be a good change for baseball? Do you think that would be a good
I do
change?
think it would be, yeah. I
Okay.
do. I do. The MLB doesn't can't compete with the NBA and it can't compete with the NFL. So if we look
No.
at the MLB schedule,
Sure.
the MLB runs from the end of March to the end of October,
Yep.
and the NBA season runs. The NBA playoffs start in mid-April and go all the way until early June. So the first quarter of the MLB season
Yeah.
is not. I mean, nobody even really cares about the first 40 games in baseball because there's so many anyways.
Yeah. So you'd be okay with them shortening the
Um,
season by a good 30, 40 games?
Values the individual game more. That's the great thing about college football and the NFL
Hmm.
is
Sure.
the regular season, each game of the regular season is so valuable because a loss has a huge impact on future success of the team. If an MLB team loses 50 games, I mean, 50 games is unbelievable. If an MLB team loses 65, 70 games a year, they are virtually a playoff team.
Oh, they're one of
And
the
for me, that's
best.
ridiculous because how
Really?
how can you be at your best 162 games out of the year? I mean, I just don't buy it.
Well, I think I
Why not
think
shorten the regular season? Go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry,
No,
go
no,
ahead.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna say, no, I think that a lot of people now, I, you see, I don't really mind that it's 162 games. I'd be okay with shortening it if the players wanted it, right? And if it was kind of a mutual like
Right. I
agreement that
agree.
like they shorten
I
it.
agree.
I think maybe 140, 130, 120 games would be okay. But I also think a lot of the reason the season's much longer than other sports, you talk about the individual importance of each game. I think a lot of the reason the season's so much longer is because in baseball it takes players a lot longer to get back into prime form. I feel like when you start the season,
Okay.
I feel like for a lot and part of the, I don't you also look at spring training, how long spring training is, right?
It is. It's
It's
a,
just
it's a full month at least.
of games,
And
right?
playing every day. Yeah. Playing
Yeah,
every day.
like you compare that to like the NFL and all the other sports, and they don't play for a full month before the season starts. I mean, they play 4 games, right, in the preseason. Um,
And most of the starters don't even play those
exactly. So
full
I think
four
it's interesting.
games,
I think it's kind of interesting to point out that just like it takes. I think baseball's in a unique situation in terms of it takes players a long time to get back up into like the peak playing
That's
form.
interesting. I never really
Uh,
thought about it like that.
so
I didn't really know how long. I've never played baseball. I know you played
okay.
baseball a little bit growing up, but
Hmm.
I didn't really know like how long. I mean, I don't know if it's true for everybody, but I'm sure a lot of players. I didn't
I'm
realize how
sure it's
long
not
it
true
took
for
for them
everybody, but
to. I didn't
yeah.
realize how long it took them to actually get back into their
Hmm.
like back into the swing of things. So maybe baseball does need a full 162 games in order to get the most out of
Well, maybe not
every
necessarily,
team.
but they do need like more than every other sport, right?
Oh, I
Just
completely agree.
yeah,
I'm not saying we should play a 25 game baseball season.
yeah. I
No.
know, I
I would
know.
say
Sure.
if baseball cut maybe a month of the regular season, finish your World Series by September when football and college football are starting up, I think
Mm.
that would do wonders for them because the World Series, I feel like I mean, you and I watch sports talk television shows.
Yeah.
Do you ever, I mean, they barely talk about the World Series when it's football and college
Well,
football
that's true,
season.
right? I mean, you think about it though. The World Series is in October, right? And what's going on during
Right,
that
right in the
time?
middle of the
You've
NFL
got you've got the
season.
NFL in full swing, right? And you have
College
college football as
football,
well,
full
and you have
swing,
you have the NBA that's going to start back up
and
like
the
around that
NBA.
time. So I
Right,
mean, you have
right,
three
right.
major sports that all get more views, and I mean, let's face it, for the vast majority of these people, not only do the talk shows get more views and they talk about these sports, they also enjoy watching these sports more. Like it's true. Like I'm sure Stephen A, Max Kellerman,
Completely
Shannon
agree.
Sharp, they're not like, oh wow, I want to watch the World Series over uh, these NFL games on Sunday. Probably not. Like, sure,
Right.
maybe if it's your
Completely
team,
agree.
but it's
Completely
just
agree.
baseball is more of just kind of a pastime. It's true. Like it's
Exactly.
more of just something you turn on
Exactly.
if there's nothing else on, which is fine. I think it's a good role for the MLB. Honestly, I think they'll be the third best sport for a while. I don't really know if I don't really think hockey has a higher ceiling. I mean
People
that's a
talk about
discussion
how
for another
hockey.
time, kind of.
Right, right.
But
I
yeah,
agree with you. I don't think
hockey.
hockey will ever dominate like basketball and football. Might not even
No,
be. It might even be less viewed than baseball, depending on the
it
market. But
depends. I mean, yeah.
right.
But I don't know. So it's an interesting conversation. And before we move on to our power rankings and the NFL draft, I did want to just talk about briefly uh, just one more time, just kind of the what we think the NBA is going to do. And still, it's really murky, obviously. But I know we talked about earlier, fans might not coming back till August, right? And that's probably a pretty ideal scenario, right? Fans being able to go to games in August.
That'd be ideal.
So
Yeah,
if
that
that's the
sounds right.
case, right, that would be the NBA Finals. Hopefully, would have fans, right? I mean, so let me put it like this: would you be okay with an NBA Finals with no fans?
Um, it's a tough question
It is,
because
yeah. Would you be okay with playoffs with no fans?
um, it's hard. Like I feel like
Right?
there's a huge impact that having home court has. I feel like a
Mm,
lot of players feed off of playing at home. Some players feed off of being the villain playing on the road, but
yep.
we oftentimes see it in the playoffs. I've noticed this through the years is not so much the superstars. LeBron James obviously will drop 30 points a night wherever he plays, but
Yep.
the role players in the
Very true.
playoffs, so much of the team success is burning on the role players,
Hmm.
and role players in the playoffs play a lot better at home than they do on the road. I've just noticed that throughout the year. So I feel like when you're playing in front of no fans, I guess that will level out how role players affect the game, but it's just interesting how
Well, the
everything is
dynamic
so
changes,
like
right?
right, the
So,
dynamic does
so I
change.
think I think it's really important, and I think hopefully, I'm sure the NBA is thinking about this, and I'm sure I think what they're going to do is they're going to start the regular season, finish it with no fans, and then ensure that whatever timeline they're on, that the fans will be allowed to come back for
Mhm.
at least the NBA finals.
I hope. Yeah,
Because
I think
I
having
don't
fans at
think
the
they
NBA
want
finals is important.
I don't think they want no fans for the playoffs because I think that makes the players really unhappy as well.
Right.
I know LeBron has expressed like his frustrations over
He
potentially playing
has.
with no fans. So I
Mhm.
think the NBA is gonna. I think Silver is gonna do a decent job bringing them back. And
I agree. I agree.
hopefully we get a finals or playoffs with fans. I think it'll be really interesting.
I
And
agree.
summer basketball will be a lot of fun. It will be a lot of fun.
True, I didn't even think about that aspect of
It'll
it.
be kind of cool.
Right.
So all right.
Very
So
interesting stuff there.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if you what do you want to move on to now? We can move on to either the NFL draft real quick. You want to talk about NFL power rankings first? What do you
Let's do the power rankings first, and then we'll talk
Okay.
a little bit about the draft. Ryan and I made a little power rankings list of our own. I'm sure we have some
Hmm.
agreements, some disagreements. Ryan, I'll start with you. Maybe
Okay.
round out maybe a top 5 or 10, and then maybe
Okay.
we can talk about um,
Differences there maybe,
differences in
or
our list. Yeah,
a
go ahead.
surprise team or something. Okay.
I
So
agree. Yeah.
let me just give my top 10 real quick. I have Kansas City at number one, and then I have the Saints at number
Hmm.
two. I have the Niners at three. I have the Ravens at four. I have the Cowboys at five. I have the Buccaneers at
Wow.
six. I have the Seahawks at seven. I have the Bills at eight, the Packers at nine, and the Eagles at 10. And I'll note I do have the Browns at
I
11.
have I have the exact same 10 teams, just in a little bit of a different order, actually.
Wow. Okay.
Um, I have New Orleans at one,
Hmm.
Kansas City two, San Fran three. I have Seattle at four, Baltimore five, Philadelphia six, Tampa Bay seven, Green Bay eight, Dallas nine, Buffalo 10.
Wow.
And I think the big thing that stood out to me on your list was how high you had Dallas. You had Dallas all the way up at
I
number
knew you would say
five.
that. Yeah, I do. I do have the Cowboys at
Look,
five.
I don't necessarily disagree. I disagree with it a little bit, but I do think Dallas is a very talented team.
Yeah,
They lost Byron Jones. They lost Travis Frederick to retirement, so they did take a couple hits. They did
that's true.
re-sign Amari Cooper. Dak
Big deal
Prescott's
though.
franchise tagged. Right. Cooper staying is huge for them. Franchising Dak Prescott, he might not have loved that, but he's there for another year. He'll
He'll
probably get
he'll
an
stay long
extension after
term.
next
Yeah, he
season.
will.
Yeah, depending on how he does this season, I'm sure he'll get an extension
I
after
think.
next season. But what do you see? What do you see in Dallas after an 8-8 season where they really didn't get much better in the offseason?
Well, that's interesting. So I look at Dallas, right, and I know people might disagree with this, but I really look at Dallas and I look at Cleveland and I see a mirror of two pretty similar situations, right? You look at their
Okay,
seasons, high expectations, high expectations. The expectations a little bit
underachieving.
different. Cleveland should have made the playoffs. Cowboys, Super Bowl aspirations, right? Both underachieved.
Mm-hmm.
6-10 and 8-8, right? And you look at
Mm-hmm.
why. You look at why. You look at the coaches. I think it all comes down to the coach. I really do. Jason Garrett, right? He probably should have been fired a
Mm-hmm.
few years back. I think he lost them a bunch of games. I really do. It's not even that he was that bad of a play caller or made wrong decisions necessarily, although he could have done a
Mm-hmm.
lot better. It's just the absolute lack of leadership and motivating that he had. Like he just didn't he didn't motivate the players.
Mm-hmm.
He was no Mike Tomlin and sort of just motivating his team to win. And I think
I
that's really,
agree.
really
I
important. And I
agree.
think Cleveland is in a similar situation. And so that's why I have Dallas at 5, because I really think that this year with Mike McCarthy, I think he's a much more level-headed coach. While he is kind of an old timer, right? He kind of is stuck in his old style offense, right? But I still think the Cowboys have elite talent, top 5 talent for sure, maybe better. Um,
I agree.
and so I
They
think
have
that
an
they're going to be really good
excellent
this year. I
offense.
think they
They have an
win. I
excellent
think they win their
offense.
division, no doubt. And
Wow,
with
no doubt.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't even really think the Eagles will come within a win or two. I mean, maybe they'll come within 2 wins. Um,
Um, for
but
me,
yeah,
it's weird. Yeah, go ahead. All
no,
right.
no, I'm done. I'm done.
I'm high on Mike McCarthy as well. I do think he's definitely an upgrade from Jason Garrett. I don't really, a lot of people didn't love that hire, but at the same time, I feel like Mike McCarthy is an excellent offensive mind and an excellent
He is.
football coach. And I feel like he will definitely get close to the most out of Dak Prescott. Whether Dak
Mm-hmm.
Prescott was at his ceiling last year, I think that Mike McCarthy will get more out of him. Dallas still has arguably the best running back in the NFL. They still have arguably one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They have a
Mm-hmm.
top five, arguably a top five receiver in Amari Cooper,
Top
probably a
5
top
receiving
five
core.
receiver, you could say. Yeah, Cooper's a really nice receiver. Gallup really emerged as a nice receiver
Mm-hmm.
last year. Jarwin, the young tight end, had a good end of the season. So I think
Yeah.
Dak will definitely have weapons.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing for me, I think the biggest question on the Dallas Cowboys is Dak Prescott and which Dak
Really?
Prescott will show up.
Okay.
For me, if the situation is right, Dak Prescott will thrive, but I don't see that elite. You look at the quarterbacks
Okay.
above Dak Prescott list, all right? Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Carson Wentz, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo, but he has an elite team around him, Patrick Mahomes, and Drew Brees. Can Patrick Mahomes ascend himself into that company where he can win games without an elite offensive line, without an elite defense, without elite coaching? Or will he fade into the next 5 teams below him? Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, Buffalo with Josh Allen, Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, Pittsburgh with an aging Ben Roethlisberger, or Cleveland with a questionable Baker Mayfield.
I'm telling you,
So for me, Dak
the parallels
Prescott,
are crazy.
right? Dak Prescott is right in the middle where I'm not sure which quarterback he will be.
Okay.
He can be either one. He can be a very average quarterback, or he can be a
Mm-hmm.
very elite quarterback. He's shown us both.
Yep.
But I think with Mike McCarthy, this is Dak Prescott's year to show us, will he be the franchise quarterback like the guys above him, or will he be guys like Ryan Tannehill and
Sure.
Kirk Cousins, who are average throwers in this league, who can make the playoffs but will never win a Super Bowl?
Well, see that okay, that's really interesting. And I think I'm higher on Prescott than most. I watch him and
Mm-hmm.
I see the flashes of potential. I do. Their offense
Absolutely. Completely agree with you there. Completely agree with you
is
there.
bursting with potential. I mean they show it. They show it, but at times they're so flat. They can't make the plays. And other times they
Right.
march down the field with ease. And again, I know I really shouldn't be using this comparison again because I am a Browns fan, but I really think the parallels are really similar where the Cowboys are in a situation where, okay, Prescott, like this is your make or break season. Like this is your
I
time
think this is a make or break
to
season for
decide
Prescott. Absolutely.
will you be this franchise quarterback? Same with Baker Mayfield. Will he step up? Will he bounce back from his bad year? Will he prove that it was the coach, or will it be him and he'll be forever like an
Right. Right.
average quarterback at best, right? So I think these two
Mm-hmm.
teams are in really similar situations. I still think the Cowboys might be I think they're a year ahead of Cleveland in terms of experience, and I just think they're a little more well-rounded. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. And
I
I
agree. I
was
think those are well,
yeah,
those are obviously two of the most intriguing teams in the NFL. Dallas and Cleveland get a lot of airtime on mainstream
they do,
talk
they
shows.
do.
Baker Mayfield's a big personality. Jerry Jones is a very, very big personality. So obviously those guys are going to get a lot of attention
Hmm.
for whatever reason. But kind of switching, not really switching gears, but Ryan and I had a little debate off the air about a couple of teams on our list. We have certain
Hmm.
ranking discrepancies or
Yep,
whatever. I don't even know if I said
discrepancies.
the right word
You're
there.
good.
Discrepancies, excuse me. Ryan, I know we talked a little bit about the Los Angeles Chargers.
We did.
You have them relatively high on your list. I definitely see why. I have them
Hmm.
relatively low. I have the Chargers in the 22. I have them, yeah, ranked at 22. I think you have them
Okay,
ranked at around 14 or 15. So
I
talk about
do. I
why you think
have. Yeah.
being ranked 14th is a playoff team. There are 14 teams that'll make the playoffs. So you think the Chargers are a
Yes.
borderline playoff team? Explain
Yes,
why.
there are 14 teams in the playoffs now. Okay, so why are the Chargers a playoff team? You look at that team, right? You see it, to me, I think they have the structure of a top. I think at their best, they could be a top 5 team. I don't think they will be. I don't even think they'll be a top 10 team. The reason I'm at
Mhm.
14, though, is because they have talent on both sides of the ball,
They do.
fantastic
They
D
really do.
line. They have really nice corners, um, and they have good safeties, Derwin James, right? But they have Melvin Ingram, right? They have Joey
Mhm.
Bosa. So
Mhm.
they have a lot of talent. Uh, on the defensive side of the ball. And then you look at the offensive side of the ball. One of their best offensive linemen was out all of last year. I believe he's back this year. I'm not sure. I know that they have Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson, who they're both going to use, and I really like both of them. I really like
Right. They
Justin
both they
Jackson.
both showed themselves a lot. Particularly Eckler got a lot of
Yes, Eckler is a
carry.
fantastic. I think he's just a better version of Duke Johnson. He's just a better running version. He's a
He's a great pass
fantastic.
catcher out of the
He's a
backfield
fantastic
too.
pass catcher, but he can also run. And the receivers pretty good. I think Mike Williams needs to be better this year.
Mhm.
But I think no matter who they have at quarterback, okay. But if they have Tyrod Taylor, I think they might be an 8-8 team. But I think if they draft a quarterback, I don't know off the top of my head what their pick is, but
I believe they're 6 in the draft, I
are they
think.
really? Okay, well if they're
I
six,
think they're
then
6.
then
I'm
I
pretty
think
sure.
if they get a quarterback, um, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, but if they get a quarterback, I think that they can definitely be a playoff team. I think you put Tua on that team. I even think you put Cam Newton on that team. They're a playoff team, like without a doubt. In my
That's my
personal
problem
opinion.
with the Chargers is
What?
here's what they're indicating to us. By
Hmm.
not signing a Cam Newton or a Jameis Winston, they're taking a quarterback in the
Well, hold
draft.
on. Maybe they're waiting though. Maybe Winston. I mean, I think Winston wants a lot of money. I think Cam wants a lot of money. Maybe they're just waiting.
Fair. Fair, but if
But
you're the Chargers and
sure.
you feel like you have that good of a roster where if you get a quarterback, you can be a top 5 team in the NFL, why not
Yeah.
spend money on Cam Newton? If you feel like you can win a Super Bowl with Cam Newton, when you
Because
have unbelievable talent, unbelievable receivers, they have 2 6'5" receivers, Mike Williams, Keenan
Keenan
Allen.
Allen.
They have another guy, I forgot his name, but he had a really good year for them last year. He's the third guy. I forgot his
Is
name
it
though.
Dontrell Inman? I don't know. He
Maybe not
was.
him. It was
No,
an
I
I
don't
forgot
remember.
his
I don't
name.
remember who else it was. But regardless, you are right. I think it's about money, and I think it's maybe they have a little bit of doubt. I think Cam 30 now? I know he's at least in his late 20s. But maybe
Yeah, I
maybe they're
still
having a
think
little bit
Cam
of
can
doubt
play at a high
about his. I
level.
I, I think so too. But
Mhm.
maybe they're having a little bit of doubt about his how healthy he can be. Now I'm not sure, but I think you're right. You're probably right. I think they're probably going to go for a Herbert or a Tua, which will be really interesting to see.
I think if they
Um,
got Tua,
I
I
think if
think
they
they
got
would
Tua,
be an instant playoff team with Tua his rookie year.
so by
But
me
again,
putting them
I'm
at
very high on Tua. I'm very high on
by me
Tua.
putting
But
them
go
at
ahead.
14, I'm kind of thinking that they're not going to have Tyrod starting this year.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, if they had Tyrod starting this year, I'd probably put them around like 17 or 18, just as
Mhm.
like going like 7 and 9 maybe. Um,
Right.
But I think with a quarterback in the draft or one of the quarterbacks in free agency, I think they can definitely make the playoffs. So that's why I have them higher.
That's the thing with the Los Angeles Chargers. As bad of the years they had last year, where they went like 5-11 or something like that,
Yeah, that was
they have a really, really good roster,
they
and
do.
they're missing a quarterback. I mean, they're one good quarterback away from being a playoff team,
Mm,
contending in that division. We saw the year before.
Yep.
They went 12-4. Kansas City went 12-4. Kansas City won the division over a tiebreaker. But the Chargers can be an elite team in the NFL
Yeah. No, for
if they get
sure.
the
No
right
doubt.
quarterback. Obviously, we'll talk about what that quarterback may be, especially the guys in the draft.
Mm,
There's obviously been a lot of talk about this year's quarterback class, so I guess I'm kind of segueing into that. But Ryan, we're going to talk a little bit about the NFL draft now.
okay.
There seems to be a consensus at number one, Joe Burrow. Whether or not I think he's the best quarterback in this draft, he will go number one. There's no
He will.
arguing that. Chase Young, a lot of people think is the best individual prospect, will go number two. Tua Tagovailoa, people think he could be a really good NFL quarterback. Justin Herbert,
Mhm.
Jordan Love has played himself into the conversation of being a first-round pick.
Yes, he has.
So I want to ask you this question: who will be the best quarterback prospect out of this class?
Who will be the best quarterback prospect? In my opinion, I really think it's going to be at the end of the day. I think it's going to be Joe Burrow. I just think, and I know it's a very popular pick, but I just think you look at Herbert, and I think you see a pretty average pocket passer who, while he does show
I agree with
flashes
her.
of
I agree with
really
you on
nice
that.
play, I think he has limited mobility, which in
I was
today's NFL
never,
isn't great.
I've never been too high on Herbert. I
Yeah.
don't really see it. It kind of reminds me of like Jake Fromm. Like, what do
Yes,
people
and
see in Jake
Jake
Fromm?
Fromm is also really, I think he's also very overrated. He's not accurate. He can't make simple passes typically, or at least not
Hmm.
often within 10 or 15 yards. And if you're going to the NFL, you got to make those throws pretty much every time if your
I
receiver's
agree.
open. And there
I
are a
agree.
multitude of times. I know that South Carolina game that Georgia lost this past year, Fromm was missing all his receivers on simple crossing routes over the middle of the field, and it's just you got to hit those. And I think Herbert has the same issues at times. He not necessarily accuracy, but he makes wrong decisions and it isn't necessarily the smartest with the football. So I think
Hmm.
Burrow, although I think Burrow's going to be the best overall quarterback just because there's a little bit of questions with Tua, and I know they say he's 100%, but in the back of your mind, you still think of that hip injury, right? I mean, it's always going to be there, and I think I'm not really sure how consistent he can be in terms of accuracy. I know he has a really nice arm
Hmm.
and he's mobile, but I don't know. I think Burrow's just the most well-rounded, and he's careful with the football, very accurate, has a really good
I
arm for deep
agree.
throws, and I just think
Hmm.
the most well-rounded. But what do you think?
So before I get to the Burrow Tua debate, which definitely people think those are obviously going to be the two best quarterbacks in this draft class. I'm with you on Herbert. I see flaws in his game. I think the one thing that Herbert has going for him is he's athletic, he can run. And as we're seeing now in the NFL, quarterbacks who can be mobile and roll out of the pocket and make plays with their feet have become much more weaponized and much more used. I mean, we look at Lamar Jackson winning MVP last year. Mahomes won
Mm,
the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say a running quarterback, but he can make plays with his legs. Guys like Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson can make plays with their legs. So I think
true.
Herbert will have success in the NFL because he is raw and because he's an athletic guy. I think you can work with that if he goes to the right team, like a Chargers. I think if he went to the Chargers, that'd be a great fit for them. Um, I do partially agree with you on Burrow. I don't think Burrow has the highest ceiling of all the quarterbacks in this draft, but I do think as of right now, he is the most
Sure.
refined quarterback.
I think Tua might have a higher
Um,
ceiling.
I think Burrow is an unbelievably accurate passer of the football, a great deep ball thrower. We saw in the national championship game and
Yes.
on some of those nationally televised games how accurate and how great of a touch Burrow has with the deep ball. I'm not going to
Mm.
say Burrow's stats were inflated in college, but I will say this.
Mm.
Burrow has five-star receivers across the board and a really good running back and probably the best O-line in college football. So Burrow was in a perfect
Yeah, but
system for him to thrive.
so is Tua.
Um,
Tua has
yes,
five-star receivers who are going to go in the
I
first
agree. I
round.
agree. But Tua also was dealing with injuries and other things like that, and a weaker O-line than Joe Burrow. And when people forget,
A
Tua really
weaker
didn't have that bad
O-line?
of a.
You
I
think so?
mean, Joe Burrow had the best O-line in college football. While watching those games, Joe Burrow had
Okay.
hours to throw the ball back there.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. I just think Alabama's O-line's decent as well. But anyway,
It's
sorry.
good. It's not as good as LSU's. It's not as good as LSU's. Um, I love Burrow. I think Burrow has the right swagger and attitude to really be successful in the NFL.
His swagger's
And the
reminding me
biggest,
of Baker now, though. I don't know if that's a good thing
the
because
problem
he's
is he
at.
wins.
Oh, well, I'm talking about coming out of college, but yeah.
The problem is, I think there's a fine line between Baker and Burrow.
Really?
I think Burrow plays with the right amount of swagger and confidence, whereas Baker plays with more of a chip on his shoulder and a little bit more feisty and a little bit more angry. But that's a debate for another day.
Yeah,
The only
that's a
reason
debate for
why
another day.
I like Tua better than Burrow is one, Burrow is going to a dysfunctional franchise in the Cincinnati Bengals, which isn't his fault.
They
I
do have
think that's
talent though.
gonna they have talent, but I feel like just the organization itself will hinder his success at least in the short term. And two, I think Tua's just special. I think Tua has a
Okay.
special arm. I think he's just different. I think there's just something about him that will make him that will make him better. There's just something about Tua. I can't really explain it, but
Okay.
I think he
You think
just
he
has
has
a
that it
God-given
factor?
he just has a God-given arm talent. It reminds me of like an Aaron Rodgers or a Drew Brees where he can just it just when he throws the ball, it looks so effortless and easy.
Hmm.
And I think people are worrying a little too much about Tua's injury. I think he'll be fine. I think he's recovered and he's had plenty of time to get that hip right. He won't even be playing a snap until August in the preseason. I think he'll be fully healthy, ready to go. And if he goes to a Miami or if he goes to a Los Angeles Chargers, I think they're
Hmm.
going to become maybe not this year, but in a year or two, playoff teams. I think Tua Tagovailoa is going to be a special quarterback in the NFL for the
Wow.
next 10 years. Not saying Burrow won't,
Wow.
but I think Tua just has a little
Okay.
bit more God-given talent than Burrow.
I mean, sure, I think so. I think that's a fair statement. But
And
I
people
also,
forget when they played this year,
hmm,
Tua, as bad as maybe people thought Tua looked, Tua threw for 420 yards and 4 touchdowns against LSU
what did Burrow throw for?
on a bad hip where he couldn't run. Burrow obviously threw for
Wait, was it
393.
was it a bad hip? Wait, he hurt his hip in Miss against
Okay, it
Mississippi
was a
State,
bad
wasn't it? It
something.
was a
I
bad
forgot.
ankle. It was a bad ankle.
Ankle, excuse me,
Sorry.
wrong. I'm misinformed. Bad ankle.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
Um,
just
And he put up, I mean, he played on a bad ankle. He matched Burrow throw for throw.
no, of course he
And
did.
and he obviously has great receivers, but Jerry Jeudy in that game did drop 2 touchdown passes. If you go back and watch the highlights, he had a couple of really big drops. Not trying to take away from anything from LSU here, but I do think people are unfairly trying to. I shouldn't say unfairly.
Hmm.
I think people are being a little bit too hard on Tua and his injury. I think Tua is going to come out and show
Oh
out
no,
in
I
the
think they're
NFL.
being too hard on his injury as well. But I just think that if I'm an NFL team, I don't particularly like drafting on potential, and this goes across all sports for me.
That's fair. That's
When it
fair.
comes to the NBA, I mean the NBA more so, but that's not for now. I think that for Joe Burrow, I think he's shown. I think he's shown, and I think Tua has shown as well. But I think Burrow this past year has shown that he right now is the best quarterback. Now, I think in today's world we have a really, really big recency bias when it comes to looking at players. So I think because Burrow had his really good year this past year, he's going to go number one. But I think if
Right.
Tua had his really good, remember his first full season, he came
Right.
out.
Yeah,
I
people
think
forget when yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I think
Exactly.
if that happened, I think maybe Tua would be up there with Burrow for the conversation of number one. But because Tua got hurt, all of a sudden now he's down to like 6, 7, 8, and it's just I don't really like that. So I think Tua is a lot closer than people think. But yeah, I think that
I agree with you.
I think
I agree with
Burrow
you.
is just the more well-rounded. But we'll see.
No, I agree with you on that. I do agree with you on the recency bias.
Hmm.
I definitely think people tend to remember like the flashy moments in someone's career and
Hmm.
try and yeah, use what they saw in the past or the most recent
Well,
past
yeah.
to
I mean,
judge what they're going to do in the future.
I just think they look at LSU and they say, "Wow, they won the national championship. Burrow carried them," but they don't look at the previous season where Burrow was a really really average quarterback, and maybe that's not
Right, and
relevant
that's why
anymore.
I mentioned if Burrow is not in the perfect system,
Hmm.
how good will he be?
Maybe,
LSU was a perfect system. They brought
maybe.
in Joe Brady. They spread the football out and they said, "Look, our receivers against your cornerbacks, our receivers are better. They're going to get open." So Joe Burrow had a lot of help from his receivers.
Sure.
I'm not saying that it sounds like I'm taking away from Joe Burrow. I'm
Hmm.
not trying to, even though I am probably a
Well, I
little
think you just
bit.
feel like he's being a little bit overhyped. So that's all.
I don't think yeah, I do think
He,
he's being a little overhyped.
yeah,
I'm not going to say
that's
he's
fair.
but I think he's earned the hype that he's getting. He's earned it. He won all the big football. He won all the big games this year.
Yep.
He blew teams. He blew Clemson out. He blew Oklahoma out. He put 46 up on Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So Joe Burrow has
Unbelievable.
earned the hype and earned the right to be number one. But people forget, look, this guy couldn't earn the starting job at Ohio State. JT Barrett and I
Cardell
think
Jones, was it?
Cardell Jones, right. I think Joe Burrow wasn't even able, I think he was the third guy on that team, which is why he
Hmm.
transferred. So
Yeah.
clearly there's something that people didn't see in him. But look,
Maybe
Joe Burrow,
maybe he's just gotten better, but you're right.
exactly,
I think
exactly.
people forget that Tua has been good since the start. He's been elite since the start, and
Right.
Burrow does have a little bit of a different path. So I guess we'll see. We'll see who's the better player. But
But I do think Burrow has earned the right to be number one. He beat everyone last year. He showed that he can be an excellent quarterback in the NFL. I just think people are sleeping a little bit on Tua, and people are forgetting how good Tua Tagovailoa is because of this
sure,
whole looming injury concern. But it'll be
sure.
a great debate. I can't wait to see those guys play on Sundays.
Mm,
Both great quarterbacks. Love Burrow's swagger and personality, though. I think he's going to exude that in the NFL, and I think it's going to feed off onto his teammates. But
yeah.
any more draft talk? I think we have a little bit more to talk about in terms of the draft.
Do you want to talk about something else in the draft?
I was just going to say we talk
Yeah,
about
that's fine.
quarterbacks all the time, but if there's
Yeah,
an individual best prospect, at any other position, Chase Young's getting a lot of attention.
of
Do
course
you
he
have
is.
an individual player in the draft that you think will shine in the NFL regardless of position?
Well, in my opinion, uh, I think this draft class is really, really good, just
It
all
is
around.
yeah, it's a really deep draft class.
I think not everyone really understands how good this draft class is going to be,
Insanely good draft
especially in
class.
regards to offensive linemen and wide receivers. But I
And
do.
even secondary, there's going to be some really good secondary players in this draft
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
no, yeah, yeah. What was the Oh, I'm so sorry. Who was the guy? Hold on.
Okuda,
Jeff Okuda, yes, from Ohio State. He's gonna be. I think he's gonna be fantastic.
I agree with you.
I think he's gonna be almost an elite corner from the get go. I mean, you watch him. I watched a little bit of him after hearing about him at the combine. About
Hmm.
the reporter who asked him about how are you gonna clean up your sloppy play, and he said I had no penalties all last season. So
Which I don't
sure,
think people understand how
sloppy.
impressive that
That's
really
and
is, especially
the discipline that
especially in an
takes.
offensive-minded league like the NFL, where pass interference can
Hmm.
be so easily called. Defensive holding is called so often. To
Hmm.
not have a single penalty in
I know.
14 games is incredible.
Yeah, it's
Incredible. That's really
unbelievable.
impressive by Jeff Okuda.
Yeah. So
Shows you how good and how hard he
I think
works.
he might be one of the best. I do think though. I think Isaiah Simmons from
I
Clemson.
was literally about to talk about Isaiah
I
Simmons.
think he might be, and it might be because of his versatility, but I think he might be the best defensive player in this draft. And everyone talks about
Darn.
Chase. Everyone talks about Chase Young. Everyone talks about Chase Young, and he has all the talent. But let's face it, in today's NFL, there are a lot of elite pass
Edge
rushers, right?
rushers. Hmm.
There are. It's becoming a pretty common, not necessarily common, but there are a fair amount of new elite ones. You got both the Bosa's. You got, J.J. Watt's been
Bradley
around for a
Chubb at
while. You got,
Denver.
and you have, well, this is old, but Von Miller's been around for a long time. Miles Garrett's there. You have obviously J.J. Watt's been here for a long
Chandler
time.
Jones.
Chandler
Chandler Jones, my
Jones.
Cardinal.
And on a lot of teams, there's that one elite pass rusher, right? So
Hmm.
I think that's more of a common not I think it's more of a common thing to
It's
have in
probably
terms of an
easier
elite
to
pass
find,
rusher.
like you said. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think just to have someone like Isaiah Simmons who can play both linebacker and safety,
Right.
just I think he might end up being the best overall individual player. But we'll see.
Darn.
I think Jeff
I
Okuda
was
might
literally gonna
be.
say Isaiah Simmons. I think he'll be unbelievable.
I think he will too. And some people have him falling down to like as far as Cleveland at 10, which I think was ridiculous. I don't think he'll fall that
Well,
far at
if you're
all.
Cleveland and Isaiah Simmons is available at 10, would you take him?
Yes, but we really want an offensive lineman because this class for offensive linemen, we're not going to get too deep into it.
There's
But
some great offensive
there's some
linemen. Yeah.
fantastic offensive linemen. There's some from Georgia. There's one from Louisville. There's one from Iowa, I believe, and they're all
Uh huh.
fantastic. So
Yeah. I was about to mention an offensive lineman as a really good
yeah, what do you
potential
think? Is there
prospect.
anyone else that you is worth mentioning? I know I kind of
I think
mentioned a bunch.
Tristan Wirfs, the lineman from Iowa,
Mm,
he'll probably go top 5 in the draft, but I think
he might be
he's a
the top
very
one.
athletic lineman too. So I think he's going to be an excellent tackle wherever he goes.
Yep.
Obviously, the big guy from Louisville, Mekhi
He's like
Becton,
6'7", right? I believe.
right? He has all the potential in the world to be an
He
unbelievable
does.
lineman. Again,
Yep.
though, would you draft on potential? or
Well, I mean,
provenness, but
he's shown some of it, but yeah,
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with
Wirfs,
you.
and I believe it's Thomas from Georgia. I don't remember his first name, but it's something
Thomas, and there's
Thomas.
another guy from Bama named, I think it's
Yes, I do know who you're talking about.
Jedrick Willis. Am I getting that right? I'm not really
I'm not
sure.
sure, but I do know that there's one from Bama that's elite as well. So there are a lot,
There's a
and
lot of elite linemen. So
yes.
the great thing about this draft is whatever a team might need, there's going to be a player at that position because there's so many good players at multiple different positions in
Yes.
this draft.
And one more thing worth noting, at least to me, is a lot of these teams, especially in the top 10, are going to get caught up in the quarterbacks. And I really think that the team who drafts Herbert, I really think might come to regret it because you have so much talent at the other skill
Mhm.
positions
Mhm.
that I don't know. I just don't
We
know
haven't even
how
talked
you
about the
pass them
wide
up.
receivers.
We haven't
We
even
haven't
talked
even
about the wide
talked about
receivers.
that, which we won't, but
We won't, but
let's
I
not
mean,
forget there's
one
so
thing I
many good
think it's
wide
worth mentioning is
receivers.
I believe it's Justin Jefferson from LSU. He, I think, in any other year would be the top receiver or a top two or three receiver at
Mhm.
worst. Now I think he's maybe 6 or 7, and that just
That just
shows
shows.
you
I mean, that just
that like
shows you,
this wide
dude.
receiver class is absolutely insane. So
I agree.
it's going to be a really fun draft to watch. Although I think it's going to be interesting how this virtual draft will go, but it'll be interesting to watch, and
Mhm.
I don't know, I'm looking forward to it.
I am as well. Man, once
Hmm.
again, the podcast is dominated by NFL talk. I just, the NFL does it again, man. There's always something to talk about in the
I
NFL.
know. Yep.
Last thing before we go, we really haven't talked about this much on the
Sure.
podcast. But this is just kind of like a for fun debate you guys can have with your buddies. There's really no right, I guess there's maybe a right answer, but it's all up to opinion here. All the time we hear about the GOAT debate. Is it LeBron? Is it MJ? Is it somebody else? Probably not somebody else. It's probably LeBron or MJ. I'm going to ask you right now, Ryan, if LeBron retired today, well, it's kind of tough because he's in the middle of the season,
Okay.
but
It's okay. Say it. Yeah, it's fine.
based on their career
Hypothetically.
success,
Mhm.
between the two guys, who's the GOAT, LeBron or Michael Jordan? It's a
Okay.
simple question, a very complicated answer.
So I know we're kind of we've run this podcast a little on the longer side, but I do want to mention this. I'm biased, but I just and it's hard to judge between eras, but I don't know how you don't look at LeBron and say he's the best player of all time. It's just to me, and everyone's going to point to his finals record and say, "Wow, he's 3-6." And let's say hypothetically
Mhm.
he won this year.
Mhm.
If he lost this year, let's say he'd be 3-7, right? And he made it to the
Right.
finals and lost with the Lakers. I still think he's the best player of all time because people don't understand. He made the finals. Was it 8 years in a row? Was it 8 years in a row? I believe it was 8
Eight
years in a row,
8 years in a
which
row.
people have no idea. I mean, they shouldn't because they don't play in the NBA. It is insanely. No, I don't think that hasn't been done in decades. 8 finals in a row. I don't think that's been done probably since what was it? Bill Russell won a bunch of titles back in like
That
the
would have
day,
been my guess.
and
Yeah, Bill
I
Russell.
just think people discredit that or discount how hard that is, and to run through an entire conference year after year after year, and just to totally dominate. I think that you can't look past that. And I think that just the fact that he's in his mid 30s now, and I think he might be at the best he's ever been. His passing's better than it's ever been. His 3-point
Yeah, this
shooting
might arguably be one of his
better than
best
it's ever
years as a
been.
pro. This
Yeah,
best, his
one of
best.
his
Yeah, I
best.
mean,
I mean, he's averaging
he's
a
first
double
or second
double.
in the NBA. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's up there with I think Rubio, right, in assists. And
Rubio.
yeah, with Ricky Rubio. But I
uh,
don't know. I just
Not
think
quite
that
the same player, but we'll take it.
no. But I just everyone's gonna say MJ was more clutch and he won more finals. But yeah, I think
I
LeBron's
agree.
just though I just think he's so dominant and he's made so many
100% agree
finals.
with you. I'm all in on
Yeah.
LeBron James, but again, you and I might be biased because we didn't ever watch Michael Jordan in his era. We weren't alive, obviously.
Hmm.
So people who watched Michael Jordan, people were mesmerized when they watched Michael Jordan. People always described how he was just a different species. But all the time,
Mm.
people do knock on LeBron's NBA Finals record, him losing
True.
3-6, him getting swept in the NBA Finals. But what we're also forgetting, excuse me, is Michael Jordan could not get to an NBA Finals before he got Scottie Pippen. Michael Jordan couldn't even get out of the first round of the playoffs before he got Scottie Pippen. Even when he got Scottie Pippen, he lost 3 years in a row to the Detroit Pistons,
Yeah.
who I mean, had a really good team.
They were great.
Isaiah
They were good.
Thomas, Joe Dumars, Bill Laimbeer.
Hmm.
But people forget in order to be one of the all-time greats, in order to be considered the GOAT, you have to go through your trials and tribulations. And Michael Jordan went through his trials and tribulations, but nobody seems to want to recognize that. People just look
Yeah.
at the NBA Finals record. And let's talk about who LeBron's faced in the NBA Finals. In '07, he faced a very good San Antonio Spurs team with 3 Hall of Famers. Ginobili, Tim Duncan, and I don't know if Tony Parker will be a Hall of Famer. It'll be close, but at least 2 Hall of
I think
Famers.
he'll make it.
And Tim Duncan is one of the best players to ever play, one of the best power forwards in NBA history.
Yep.
You look at the 4 years in a row he played the Golden State Warriors. 2 of those teams had Kevin Durant, which virtually you're looking at 3 Hall of Famers right there: Durant, Curry, Klay
Yeah.
Thompson. And then he beat a 73-9 Warriors team. So real quick, I could go into this for hours, but I definitely think it's not even close. I shouldn't say it's not even close. LeBron and Jordan are clear cut the 2 best players to ever do it, but you also have to look at what LeBron and Jordan went through before they won the finals, and we have to recognize the level of
Yeah, of
competition.
course.
Different era, of course, but again, there might be a bias here, but it's for me, it's LeBron James easily.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think it's a debate that everyone really talks
It's
about
a
all the
fun
time, and
debate,
it'll
though.
always
Go
be
have it
talked
with your
about.
buddies. Go have it with your buddies. It's a fun debate.
But yeah, I don't want to rush off this podcast, but we recorded this on Easter, and I got to go eat in just a minute. So I'm
No
gonna
worries,
have to go
buddy.
in just a minute.
Happy
But
Easter to everyone. I completely forgot about that.
yeah, but it's been really good, and I'm glad we had a really nice discussion about all this, and hopefully we have more to talk about in the coming weeks, and I'm looking forward to it. So
Real
thanks
quick before
everyone
you
for.
sign off, Ryan. We're probably gonna do a podcast at least momentarily every 2 weeks.
Yes, I think that's probably going to be the goal every 2 weeks,
At least until more sports come back and maybe
and
we
then
can get
hopefully
into
we
the
could do it more
fall. Yeah, then we'll do it maybe once
over
every week.
summer.
But
Yeah.
for right now, I think we're gonna upload every other Sunday, so look out for that on YouTube.
Yep.
We appreciate everyone that's watched. Remember, like 50 people watched the last video or something like that.
Yeah.
Shout out to the
So
50
thank you
people that
guys.
watched. Appreciate everything. And Ryan, I'll let you sign us off.
All right. Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching, and I think this is a really good discussion, and hopefully everyone enjoys. Yeah. I'll see
All
you in
right.
2 weeks.
Later, guys.